What it do, what it do. I'm honored to be up here with you today. Pastor Paul finished our series last month on money moves, and he did a wonderful job last Sunday if you were here on tithing. Let's give a hand for Pastor Paul on his message on tithing. I get to kick off a new series called Back to School. Everybody say back to school. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why are we talking about back to school when we are in the middle of summer? Yes, we just finished celebrating the 4th of July. It's 4th of July weekend. And according to the season of summer, it's only been a few weeks, and it's been hot. Anybody been hot? It's been very hot. But we're going to talk about back to school because we're going to be talking about parenting today. All right? So if you are a parent, if you're expecting to be a parent, even if you don't want to be a parent, I think you'll get something out of this message today. Now, if you were hoping Pastor Paul was going to be here because you heard that there was a pastor that delivered scriptures very well and broke things down simply, as you saw, he's not here. So you got me. So when I started thinking about this message that we were going to talk about today, I started thinking about gardens. Anybody here got a green thumb? We got some green thumbs in the house? They got immaculate either vegetable gardens or flower gardens or immaculate yards. Well, I do not have a green thumb. But we had a tall shrub that was in our backyard that was dying. I knew it had some kind of disease or infestation that was killing it, so I decided to cut it down. So earlier this year, my wife was given a gift, and in that gift, there were some sunflower seeds. So after I cut the shrub down, I said, I'm going to plant those sunflower seeds and get some brownie points. So I got the sunflower seeds, I dug the hole, and I planted these sunflower seeds. And I spread them out in like 6 different areas. It was in the corner of our fence. So when these sunflowers grow, they're going to cover the fence because these are like 6 to 8 foot tall sunflowers. So I planted those seeds, and I started to think, planting those seeds, I got to water them, I got to nurture them. So I started thinking that's like raising kids. So some of you might be thinking, Pastor Rodney, what do you know about raising kids? I just took some of y'all back to Gary Coleman. I know some of y'all not old enough, but I was back in the 1900s. It's a little while back. So I said, these people probably want to know, do I know about kids? So me and my wife Bridget here. Bridget, wave your hand. We have 5 kids, 1 girl, 4 boys. So Brianna, Jarvis, Rodney Jr., Roman, and Ryan. And they are here in the house, but I'm not going to embarrass them. And we have 8 grandkids. So our grandparents' names are Gigi and Pop Pop. So I have raised enough kids and been around enough grandkids to have a PhD in child raising. So I started thinking about planting these sunflower seeds. Like I said, I planted them and maybe started thinking about raising kids. And I was like, well, it was a gift. So the first point I want y'all to write down, if you're taking notes today, is our children are a gift from God. Once again, our children are a gift from God. So we're going to look in Solomon. Solomon wrote in Psalms 127, don't you see that children are God's best gift? The fruit of the womb, his generous legacy. Like a warrior's fistful of arrows are the children of a vigorous youth. Oh, how blessed are you parents with your quivers full of children. Your enemies don't stand a chance against you. You will sweep them off your doorstep. Psalms 127, 3-5, and that was in the Message version. So even if you don't want to have kids, I think this message today will help you be a better aunt, uncle, cousin, mentor, or coach, or even a boss. You will encounter somebody in your walking life that will need tough love. So we're going to be talking about tough love today. Now, parenting is one of the hardest things to do in this world. And I've kind of jot down my thoughts on the phases that we go through as parents. So this next slide is not write down, so you can write down if you want to, but this, in my head, this is what we go through as raising kids. So first we have the newborn to 3-year-olds. You are their provider. They need you for survival. You got to change diapers, you got to feed them, you got to clothe them. And this is a fun time. You know, you get to see them growing and maturing. You get to see that first smile. Now, you don't know that smile because they have gas or it's really a smile. You get to see when they first start taking their first steps. You get to see when they start taking, when they have their first fall. Now, there is a red flag warning during this stage called the terrible twos. And the reason I say it's a red flag warning, it depends on how strong their will is during that terrible twos. That might be the one that you're going to have to lay some hands on, do some tough love when they get older. Now, the 4-year-old to 10-year-olds, you are their instructor. You're getting them ready for school. You're laying out their school clothes. You're packing their school lunches. You are teaching them things like tying their shoes. At this stage, you're still able to help them with their homework because it hasn't gotten too hard for you yet. Amen. They may or may not want to still sit on your lap or jump on your back. You might even be a superhero to them. You might still be cool. They might say things to you like, Dad, you're so strong. I can't wait till I grow up to be strong like you. Or Mom, you're so pretty. I can't wait till I can wear makeup and wear a dress like you. They're still sweet at that stage. Then we get to the 11-year-old to 18-year-olds. You are now hired help, and you have to pay yourself. They are not paying you. They don't need you to get ready for school. They just need you to buy the clothes that they want. And at this point, anything that you say to them, you don't understand what they're going through. You're out of touch. They start ignoring you, feeling like you don't know what their reality is like. They start developing crushes and puppy love. They start testing the limits or just straight up start breaking the rules. This is where tough love comes in. Now, 18-year-olds and older, yes, 18-year-olds, do not stop your parenting. It goes beyond. Now, whether they graduate and go off to college or to start working or living on their own, you still have to parent. Now, you don't have to do anything for them. Maybe. But there will be times where they will check in with you when they feel like it. Now, if they start checking in more than normal, means they get ready to ask you for something. Either money, borrow the car, or maybe in the move back home. So these are the stages that kind of go through my head when I think about raising kids and what I went through as raising kids, me and my wife. But a book by Mark Patterson called Praying Circles Around Your Children says that there's really 2 roles that you really have if you want to raise godly children. So write this down if you're taking notes. You are your children's historian. You are your children's historian. You get to remember what they looked like and sounded like when they first came out the womb. Like I said, you remember that first smile. You know everything about them before their memories start forming. You have to be a student of your children. And we'll talk more about that in a minute. In Proverbs 22:6, it states, direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. Proverbs 22:6. And as they get older, you start to remember when they start reminding you to say the blessings at dinner. When they start praying for you and your boo-boos if you're not feeling well. And it's all through the things that you have taught them, as we see in Deuteronomy 6. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you're at home and when you're on the road, when you're going to bed and when you're getting up. That's Deuteronomy 6-7. So let's go back to those sunflower seeds that I planted. Remember, I was very excited. I earned those brownie points. But now I'm starting to realize that there's more to it than just planting. I knew I had to water them, but then I started to notice when that shrub was there, there was no grass and weeds because it was blocking the sun. But now that the shrub is gone, the grass and weeds are growing thicker and thicker. So the more I water, the thicker the grass and the weeds start growing. So I want you to think of the grass and the weeds as the outside influences that come into your house when you're raising your children. It could be television, it could be movies, it could be music, it could be their friends, or even their schoolmates. So after about 30 to 45 days after I planted these sunflower seeds, they started to sprout. I was excited that they started sprouting. And then I started seeing the buds started forming. So that bud forming, if we start thinking of our kids again, that's kind of like puberty, when our kids start going through puberty. And like I said, they don't think you're cool at that point. But the grass is growing thicker and thicker. It's now deeper into the summer, so it's hotter and hotter. So now I got to water these sunflower seeds even more to make sure they grow and become mature. But it's causing the weeds to grow as well. So now our kids are fully into social media. They're determining who they are. They're starting to take more stances because they're trying to figure out who they are as individuals. So a week or two later, I start to see the sunflowers starting to bloom. So I was excited. So I called my wife outside and said, "Hey, babe, sunflowers are blooming." She said, "Hey, babe, good job. Brownie points." But along with that first bloom, guess what comes? The bees and the insects. So now as the weeds are growing faster and thicker, now I got to weed eat with the bugs and the bees. So it's time for some tough love. So let's look in Proverbs 13. Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Proverbs 13:24. Proverbs 23 states, don't fail to discipline your children. The road of punishment won't kill them. Physical discipline may save them from death. And Proverbs 29 states, discipline your children and they will give you peace of mind and will make your heart glad. And this one is for any kids in the room. Proverbs 1, my child, listen when your father corrects you. Don't neglect your mother's instruction. What you learn from them will crown you with grace and be a chain of honor around your neck. Proverbs 1, 8-9. Now, before you start throwing rocks at me, I know things are different now. And remember, the beginning of us raising our kids was back in the 1900s. We did believe in spanking, all right? I know things are different now. We like to talk to them. We like to do timeouts. We like to do things differently now. But we were also creative punishers. So we kind of determined, once they got into middle school and high school, spanking wasn't going to work because they were big as me, some of them. So spanking wasn't going to do it. So we would do things like take their cell phones away. And as you know, if you take a child's cell phone away, their world ends. They thought that was just the end of it. Or they could lose their privacy. We would take the doors off their hinges, off their rooms, and they no longer have that privacy. Now, if you really, 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 really did something bad, we had what we call dining room jail. Everybody say, dun, 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 dun. Now, I heard some of my kids say it. So dining room jail was mainly if you were doing bad in school. If you were behaving bad, your grades weren't up to par, that's when dining room jail would come in. Because in the Brown household, your grades was like your job. If your grades are not doing well, that means you're not doing well at your job. Because me and mama are making the money. You got nothing to do but go to school, eat and sleep, and do your schoolwork. So if you're not doing your job at school, then in the corporate world, if you're not doing your job, you get what? You get fired or let go. And if you get fired or let go, you're no longer going to pay what? You can't pay your bills. So you can't pay your rent or your mortgage. So if you can't pay your rent, your mortgage, you got to move out. So then you got to call a friend or a family member and say, hey, I ain't got no place to stay. And they say, hey, come on over. You can stay on the couch. So now you're living on the couch. You no longer have a bedroom. You no longer have a closet or a dresser. So the dining room jail consisted of a cot was made on the floor of the dining room. You got one pair of jeans. You got 2 white T-shirts, 1 pair of shoes, and 2 pair of underwear. Because you don't have no place to put your stuff. You either living in your car or you living out of the bag. So that was dining room jail in our house, which was fun at times. So only time you could leave the dining room jail was if there was a family dinner, if we had family dinner that night. Outside of that, you had to stay in the dining room. You had to do your homework in the dining room. If you didn't have any homework, you had to read a book. And if you wasn't read a book, you better be asleep. Because there's nothing else you can do. You don't get your cell phone or anything. So that was dining room jail. Now, I had one son who, for some reason, had to break a cell phone every 2 to 3 months. For some reason, he just could not take care of a cell phone. Now, this was back when iPhones were first new and they were a little easy to work on. I was a tinkerer. I'm a tinkerer, so I can kind of make some stuff. You know, if the glass break, I can replace the glass. If the microphone stops working, I can replace the microphone. But it became a ritual for him. It's like, I'm going to get a new phone, so I'm just going to break this phone and see Daddy going to give me a new phone. So my idea was I bought a titanium phone case. Now, I don't know if y'all know a titanium phone case, but it has to be screwed on. I kept the screwdriver so they couldn't take it out, and this titanium case weighed about 5 to 7 pounds. And because one broke it, everybody had to get the titanium case. Another time, I had 2 sons. Well, you know I have 4 sons, but 2 of them were fighting. I come in the room, and they're squared up. They're ready to go at it. And I'm like, what are you doing? Y'all are brothers. We don't do this in this house. Now, we probably had moved to this house probably 2 years prior, but I kept the shrink wrap. You know the shrink wrap that you put around furniture? So I kept the shrink wrap. I said, hold on, I'll be right back. So I went and got the shrink wrap, and I shrink wrapped them together. One had a left arm, one had a right arm. I said, y'all better clean this room and get it done. And if I hear any arguing, somebody died. So that was part of our tough love that we had. So we talked about we have to be our children's historian and that you have to be a student of your children. You also are your child's prophet. Because you are a student of your children, you know their history, you know where they came from, you are also their prophet. Not that you get to see into their future, but you know who they were, you know who they are, and you know who they are becoming. So parents, I really need you to hear me when I say this. It is not the children's pastor or director or the student ministry director to develop a personal relationship for your kids to develop a personal relationship. That is your job. They are here to assist and strengthen that, but you are in charge of them learning to have a personal relationship with Jesus. So in our household, we used to do prayer circle. We called it prayer circle time. And we used to circle up or sit on the couches, you know, in a dining room or living room, and we just go around and ask, what are you thankful for? What do you need God's help with? And we will pray for each other. Now, I love that our daughter, a couple of months ago, she's grown with her own family, decided to have family check-in time. So she called all her siblings, invited them over to our house, and said, hey, we're going to get together at Mom and Dad's house. We need to have check-in time. Everybody wasn't able to make it, but what we did, we sat around. We almost did like speed dating. So we moved from one person to the next, and we asked questions like, how's your heart? What are you asking God for in this season? And then she also had us to pour into each other by speaking what we admired about each other. In Proverbs 18:21, it states, words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. 1821, that was in the Message version. Now, I believe we all heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. And I do believe in that. But when I was a teenager, I did not believe in that. I used to hate it when my mom would be on the phone with my aunts or her friends telling my business. I'd be like, Mom, that's my privacy. Don't be telling them that I got in trouble at school today. Don't tell them that I snuck the car out. Why are you telling them my business? That's my business. But I also heard those aunts and friends praying for me as well. And I'm standing here as that part of that legacy. So the next story is also about me. So from 2006 to 2018, we had at least one child in high school. So that's a lot of years of tough love back to 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 back. And that was a lot of tough love, a lot of discussions, a lot of yelling, and a lot of screaming. And it got to the point in 2012, it just was too much for me. I thought I was a failure as a father. So I asked God to take me home. I said, God, I'm tired. Take me home. This is too much. I'm not good at being a father. I don't know what's going on, but I'm just ready to go. So that was in 2012. In February of 2013, I went to a men's retreat. And I shared this at the men's retreat, that what I was going through, and I felt like I was a failure. Because other fathers shared and what they were going through with their kids. And I realized something. Kids are just crazy. Every last one of them. No dad in there said, oh yeah, I'm good. All kids are crazy. But I know that they just trying to figure out life on their own, in their way. But it was me cutting myself off because I felt ashamed to not share it. So fathers, lean on each other and share with each other. So after that, I had a different conversation, so I'm still here. Amen. Amen. Now, one of the things that stuck out to me during that weekend was when Christians think of God's love and God's mercy and God's grace, they think of their mother. When they think of God's punishment, they think of their fathers. So dads, we got to help change that. So now let's go back to my sunflower garden. Like I said, it needed some tough love. I decided I had no choice. I had to start weed eating more often than I was doing before. Because it was getting harder. I'm watering the grass. It's getting thicker and thicker. So I go out there. I said, you know what? I'm gonna pull up some grass and weeds. That lasted about 30 seconds. I was like, this is too much. There's no way I can pull up all these grass and these weeds. So I got a bright idea. I'm going to buy some more sunflower seeds and plant some more flowers. So, like I said, I do not have a green thumb. It's poor planning. But in my head, I'm thinking if I dig more holes, then I'm removing the grass and the weeds that was in the hole, and I'm just going to put these sunflower seeds and grow these new sunflowers. So, of course, I start watering the new sunflowers. The other sunflowers are growing and blooming. But the thing is, when they start sprouting, they look just like weeds. So now I can't tell the weeds from the grass from the sunflowers. So now I can't eat weed eat because I need to wait till they grow tall enough where they're taller than the weeds in the grass. So I have to hold off on weed eating. So after a couple of weeks, I can see them growing tall. So out comes the weed eater. So I'm out there, I'm trying to be meticulous. And now I got to go around the mature ones already. And I had a bright idea to plant some elephant ears. So I got to go around the elephant ears. I'm trying to be meticulous and go slow. But no matter how careful I was weed eating, I still will either damage or cut some sunflowers. Remember, we read, your tongue can speak life or death. So in closing, Father's Day weekend 2022, I think was one of the best gifts that I gave my kids. I decided to rent an Airbnb, and I have a good friend, he's actually my frat brother, Dr. Christopher Pugh. Are you here, Dr. Pugh? Rude to the Q's. Dr. Pugh is a professional counselor, and I had him come over, and I told him, I said, I want my kids to have a chance to talk to me, and if they need to fuss at me, whatever needed to happen, I wanted to give them a chance to get anything off their chest if there was anything I did that hindered them in their growth. So he talked to us individually, and he talked to us as a group, and we were supposed to work on making a family constitution. We're still working on that, Dr. Pugh. We're still working on it. But congregation, I need you to hear me when I say this. Never stop working on you. Never stop working on you. See, by the time that Father's Day 2022, I had been a father for 32 years, but I had neglected myself. So during some of that sharing time that me and Dr. Pugh had one-on-one, I shared with him, of course, what was going on with the kids as they were getting older, but I had been neglecting myself. See, I was wearing a mask. I'm going to be real with you, church. I've been wearing a mask professionally. Can I be real? It's hard being a black man in corporate America. All right? It's harder being a big black man in corporate America. I would go through things where I would share some ideas I had, or, situations would come up and I would hear, you were a little too strong. That was intimidating. You didn't say anything wrong, but just be careful next time. So I started minimizing my talent, my voice, and my influence at times. So Dr. Pugh asked me a very simple question. He said, if you had a chance to pick a superhero that you could be like, who would you pick? And I'm like, the Incredible Hulk. I'm a big dude. I don't turn green, but, I'm pretty strong. So I said, the Incredible Hulk. And he said, great. He said, I was thinking that for you as well. He said, so if you're wearing this mask and you're Dr. Banner at work, who gets the Hulk? And I was like, say that again? He said, if you are Dr. Banner at work, who gets the Hulk? So I started realizing home, my family would get the Hulk. So my family would hear this. So-and-so teacher called today. They got in trouble. Hulk smash! Dad, I wrecked the car. Hulk smash! Babe, I forgot to take something out for dinner. Hulk smash! So-and-so called today. They're in the principal's office. Hulk smash! So fathers, especially fathers with sons, I know we like to say things, they're a chip off the old block. They're just a little mini me. Do not put that kind of pressure on your son or yourself. Sometimes you make it hard for them. So look at Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger by the way you treat them. Rather, bring them up with discipline and instruction that comes from the Lord. Ephesians 6:4. In the Colossians, it states, fathers, do not aggravate your children or they will become discouraged. Colossians 3:21. Fathers, do not try to make them you. We can get carried away with things like, I need to toughen him up. He's just like me. I know what he needs. Instead, we need to say what it says in Titus 2:7. And you yourself must be an example to them by doing good works of every kind. Let everything you do reflect the integrity and seriousness of your teachings. Titus 2:7. Now, I need to clarify something. Mama bears, it's not for you to fuss at your husbands every time they have some tough love with their sons. Because sometimes it takes a man to raise a man, correct? But if he goes a little too far, just pull his shirt say, hey, I need to talk to you later on. We're going to let you and get them straight. But now to my girl dads. Now, we read earlier in Proverbs about your quiver being full and the arrows. So the arrows are more about your sons, being able to defend the house. And, we really have to defend the village anymore. Your quiver being full and being blessed means you have somebody to take care of you when you get older. Now, I have one daughter, 4 boys. When I get old and I got to be put somewhere, them boys just putting me away, and they going to put money on my books. I'll probably see them probably around Christmas and Easter. My daughter, sorry, Lawrenceville, that's her husband. I'm moving in with y'all. It's just going to happen. Now, them boys, their mama is good. She's set. But baby girl got me. Baby girl got me. So, HopeX, we're going to begin our reflection time for a couple of minutes. But before I do, I want to leave you a quote by Dr. Mark Patterson. It states, you will never be a perfect parent, but you can be a praying parent. And prayer is what turns ordinary parents into prophets who shape the destiny of their children. So let's reflect on the message today. There is communion up front if you want to do communion as a family, and we'll come back in a couple of minutes.